Oh, what am I doing with all these books today? Well, I wanted to start out at the beginning before I even get into Pride and Prejudice. Today, chapter 21. So get your books ready, get your pens ready to annotate if you're reading this for school. But I wanted to kind of pitch our Discord channel where I try and talk about, we have so many different channels there. We have threads on books we're reading, books we hate, books we love, reading sprints, questions about books I've put here. Hey, Kelly. But also, we talk about test prep. I've already shown this one. I also want to mention that your schools will offer courses. This is an older one. You can see this is from long ago when I was teaching, but it doesn't matter if it's current or not. Sometimes you can find those free because they have little practice lessons. Now, the bad part about these kind of lessons is they don't build your stamina for test taking. Once you've done, like on a Saturday, sit down and take the test for 4 hours and go through it, correct it. Once you see where you're struggling, let's say it's in grammar, let's say it's in reading comprehension, then you can use these tools to kind of focus on it. Another book I talk about is a lot of schools use Warner's. It's, I think, the best approach to grammar that I've seen. And again, you could just go through the chapters. If you look at the chapters, you've got the basics of the sentence, subjects and predicates, verbs, adverbs, prepositions, conjunctions, interjections, nouns, pronouns, hey Venus, and adjectives. But you can go in there into a book like this, and if you go to ask an old ELA teacher, because I think this is about 5th grade level. Good, I'm glad you're here. I'm going to sneeze. I'm just warning y'all. I ate peanuts right before I came on, and it kind of choked me a little bit. But, you don't have, grammar is grammar. And by the end of really 5th grade, you've mastered all the concepts of grammar. So if you just want to go back to one of your ELA teachers from elementary school and say, do you have an old workbook that I could use? You can see how much I've taught out of this. And I use this when I teach English second language. But you can go in and just practice every day. Just set up a worksheet every day, and that drills the grammar into you. And I've shown you where the daily language workbook is set up more like the test is, where you have to figure out where the mistake is, and then immediate feedback. You get the answers. Hey, Ruby, it's been a while since I've seen you. So all of these things are on Discord. So if you want to come over there and get some guidance on test prep and how to get ready for it, remember, I'm a tutor. I'm the best tutor, and I'm your friend. Therefore, I'm best tutor friend. So let me help you on Discord. I really enjoy the work. Lately, my work keeps me really busy, and it's all work with adults. And I really prefer to work with teenagers because you guys are more real and, I don't know, just more energetic and have a better outlook on life. And I just enjoy teenagers more. I'm starting a discussion group with my own family with young women, and we're calling it Girls to Women, because it's very hard to transition from being a teenager in early 20s and move into womanhood and adulthood, what y'all call adulting. So we're doing a group discussion on that, and that's just family. But I now have an account that lets, I think I'm going to pay a monthly fee. It's called Whereby. And then I can just post the classroom, and we can set up times, and we can join in. Discord has that option for us to talk, but we just have to make a plan of who's going to talk. And I find a lot of you are reluctant to talk. No camera. I don't need the camera, but just let us, chat with each other. Maybe you're burned out on it because of Google Meetup or whatever that's called, or Teams or team meetings or Zoom. So you may just be sick of the virtual world, but it is a way, because we've got regulars that are from America, that are from India, that are from Australia. I hear from people from all around Asia. I hear from people, Canada, from all around the world. And I think it would be fun that we could expand our community. It's so important to belong somewhere. We all just want to feel like the world is not a horribly scary place, and that there are kind people that we connect with and have shared interests with. And that's the amazing thing to me about the internet. Sorry, I keep hitting my table that has the laptop on it. And as a pitch for next time, when I finish Pride and Prejudice, which looks like it's going to be a while, we've got Animal Farm coming up. Get your books. Get ready to annotate if you're reading it for school. I love when you guys request, and I appreciate it so much. Oh, look at that squirrel. They're playing in the trees behind me. I appreciate it so much. I hate when I disappoint you because I've got a list of books that still need to be read, and I would love it if some of you would start your own channels of reading, because I think this method really really helps. And there's only one of me, and there's so many books. I get so many requests that it would be great if there are more of us out there trying to read and build reading comprehension skills. So think about it. If you find yourself liking this, and instead of talking about books, let's read. It is chapter 21, page 109. The discussion of Mr. Collins' offer was now nearly at an end, and Elizabeth had only to suffer from the uncomfortable feelings necessarily attending it, and occasionally from some peevish allusion of her mother. As for the gentleman himself, his feelings were chiefly expressed not by embarrassment or dejection, or by trying to avoid her, but by stiffness of manner and resentful silence. He scarcely ever spoke to her, and the assiduous attentions which he had been so sensible of himself were transferred for the rest of the day to Miss Lucas. He's butthurt, as you say, whose civility in listening to him was a reasonable relief to them all, and especially to her friend. The morrow produced no abatement, no stopping of Mrs. Bennet's ill humor or ill health. Mr. Collins was also in the same state of angry pride. Elizabeth had hoped that his resentment might shorten his visit, but his plan did not appear in the least affected by it. He was always to have gone on Saturday, and to Saturday he still meant to stay. She was hoping when she said no to him, he'd leave, but he's just hanging around there. After breakfast, the girls walked to Meryton to inquire if Mr. Wickham were returned, and to lament over his absence from the Netherfield ball. He joined them on their entering the town, and attended them to their aunt's, where his regret and vexation and the concern of everybody was well talked over. To Elizabeth, however, he voluntarily acknowledged that the necessity of his absence had been self-imposed. He didn't come to the party, made up an excuse to go out of town. That was his choice, he's saying. I found, said he, as the time drew near, that I had better not meet Mr. Darcy, that to be in the same room, the same party with him for so many hours together might be more than I could bear, and that scenes might arise unpleasant to more than myself. She highly approved his forbearance, and so he's like, I just didn't want to come and make everybody uncomfortable, and she just likes him more and more, because, what a kind thing for him to do. It's not cold here. I'm in Louisiana. You can see I'm sleeping outside. So I think we're in and I'm going to say Fahrenheit, I think we're in the high 60s or mid 70s today. I'm not sure. I'm not 100% sure, but it's going to be warmer today. So no cold here. Louisiana, you got to love it. You see the sun is shining. If you can see the sky. The sky, I don't know if you can tell. You can't tell, it's too sunny, but it's blue, blue, blue. Oh, Storm Love, I'm so glad you could make it too. I don't want you to miss class, but this is educational. So what are you guys thinking now of Mr. Wickham? One of the things I love about character books is it lets you try on personalities and watch for speech behaviors and patterns. Like I kept asking you about Mr. Collins. How many of you found out, I came to the conclusion, like he's pouty now that he didn't get his way. He was all nice and lovely with Elizabeth until she rejected him, which, is understandable, but it helps you learn what people's personalities are like, and who you can trust and who you shouldn't trust. So that's one of the things I love about literature that's driven less by plot and more by character. So what are we learning about Wickham? Wickham's got them. He's really trying to get in good graces with Elizabeth. So we think about that. Do you notice any foreshadowing? Look for that. So, Venus, I forget where you are. Texas? I'm not sure. I'm sorry. I know who you are. I just forget. He hates rejection. Yeah, Mr. Collins. I think he's insecure, Venus, is the way it comes across to me. Hey, Curious Francis. And that's what I love about these books. It's if you like psychology or sociology or want to do social work, study characters in books and you learn a lot about human nature. Soon after the return, a letter was delivered to Miss Bennet. It came from Netherfield and was opened immediately. The envelope contained a sheet of elegant little hot-pressed paper, well covered with a lady's fair flowing hand, and Elizabeth saw her sister's countenance, face, expression change as she read it, and saw her dwelling intently on some particular passages. Oh, Venus, I was completely wrong about Connecticut. I was thinking maybe Georgia, maybe Texas. I had you in the wrong state completely. Draxnell Nest 2, hello. Ruby, hi. Texas. Yeah, I mean, we're in the South. I hate it in the summer, but these fall days I love. And I will live on my porch all day, except today I'm going to go tutor two people. I'm going to tutor a former student of mine that is often on other of my books. You'll hear him in the background. He's in college now. And one of my international adult students who's an English second language student. So I'll go tutor both of them in the afternoon and have a meeting with my family midday. So it'll be a full day off. And you guys are all in school, so I feel like I'm teaching when I do this. Come join, Siddharth's probably in class, but come join our Discord. We're really active over there, and we have a lot of interaction. Those of you that are there, and I don't see Haley, but those of you who are members and on it fairly regularly, confirm that, I really do respond to what you guys say. I'm on it. I have it on my phone, so I get notifications. So if I'm not working, I'll respond when I can. It lets you know when I'm about to, oh, good. Thanks, Kelly. Siddharth and Kelly Kelly is probably my strongest connection for the longest time. We're similar in age, and she just has such literary knowledge. And Siddharth has been pretty regular. He was the one who blew up Discord for me, helped me understand how to do it. And that's what I love about this community. We keep supporting each other and growing and learning together. So come see us over at Discord. So now we've gotten bad news. So that's foreshadowing when we say her countenance changed and she's looking at something. So we don't know. We have a limited perspective, right? This is third person limited. We see some things, but we don't know everything. Jane recollected herself soon. She put herself together and, putting the letter away, tried to join with her usual cheerfulness in the general conversation. But Elizabeth felt an anxiety on the subject which drew off her attention even from Wickham. So Elizabeth knows her sister Jane really well. She knows Jane's upset. And even though she's got this big crush on Wickham, now her mind is worried about her sister. Something has happened. When they gained their own room, when they were alone, Jane, taking out the letter, said, "This is from Caroline Bingley. What it contains has surprised me a good deal. The whole party have left Netherfield by this time and are on their way to town, and without any intention of coming back again. You shall hear what she says." She then read the first sentence aloud, which comprised the information of their having just resolved to follow their brother to town directly, and of their meaning to dine that day at Grosvenor Street. Sorry for those in England, I probably said that wrong. It's Grosvenor, Grosvenor, I don't know, where Mr. Hurst had a house. The next was in these words: "I do not pretend to regret anything I shall leave here in Hertfordshire, except your society, my dearest friend, but we will hope at some future period to enjoy many returns of the delightful intercourse we've known, and in the meanwhile may lessen the pain of separation by a very frequent and most unreserved correspondence. I depend on you for that. I'm sorry we have to go. I'm not going to see you anymore. We're not going to return. You're the only thing of this terrible place that I'm going to miss, and we'll write. We'll stay in touch. We'll have a Snapchat streak." To these high-flown expressions Elizabeth listened with all the insensibility of distrust, and though the suddenness of the removal surprised her, she saw nothing in it really to lament. She's not sad about it. It was not to be supposed that their absence from Netherfield would prevent Mr. Bingley's being there, and as to the loss of their society, she was persuaded that Jane must soon cease to regard it in the enjoyment of his. "It is unlucky," she said, after a short pause, "that you should not be able to see your friends before they leave the country. Not the country, but the countryside. But may we not hope that the period of future happiness to which Miss Bingley looks forward may arrive earlier than she is aware, and that the delightful intercourse you have known as friends, like intercourse is just conversation, will be renewed with yet greater satisfaction as sisters. Mr. Bingley will not be detained in London by them. Caroline decidedly says that none of the party will return into Hertfordshire this winter. I will read it to you." So now she's reading the letter again. "When my brother left us yesterday," lots of people here, come say hi, although I'm supposed to read. "When my brother left us yesterday, he imagined that the business which took him to London might be concluded in 3 or 4 days. But as we are certain it cannot be so, and at the same time convinced that when Charles gets to town, he will be in no hurry to leave it again, we have determined on following him thither." That's one of my favorite English British literature words, thither. It's a great word. Like, we'll follow him right away. There. That he may not be obliged to spend his vacant hours in a comfortless hotel. Many of my acquaintance are already there for the winter. I wish I could hear that you, my dearest friend, had any intention of making one in the crowd, but of that I despair. I sincerely hope your Christmas in Hertfordshire may abound in the gaieties which that season generally brings, and that your beaux will be so numerous, boyfriends, callers, will be so numerous as to prevent your feeling the loss of the 3 of whom we shall deprive you. She's kind of hinting, move on to another guy, right? Like, that's despairing to her. "It is evident by this," added Jane, "that he comes back no more this winter. It is only evident that Miss Bingley does not mean he should." "Why will you think so? It must be his own doing. He is his own master. But you do not know all. I will read you the passage which particularly hurts me. I will have no reserves from you. Mr. Darcy is impatient to see his sister, and to confess the truth, we are scarcely less eager to meet her again. I really do not think Georgiana Darcy has her equal in beauty, elegance, and accomplishments, and the affection she inspires in Louisa and myself is heightened into something still more interesting from the hope we dare to entertain of her being hereafter our sister. Big news. Underline it, circle it if you're reading this for the story. Big turning point, big shift in the conflict, because Bingley, they hope, will marry Darcy's sister, this beautiful Georgiana. So Bingley is who Jane loves, and now he's left, and it's not like now where you can get on and FaceTime, and there's a new girl in the picture, so she's devastated. "My brother admires her greatly already. He will have frequent opportunity now of seeing her on the most intimate footing. Her relations all wish the connection as much as his own, and a sister's partiality is not misleading me, I think, when I call Charles most capable of engaging any woman's heart. So we know she's a good fit for him, and we know everybody loves Charles, so it's probably a done deal. With all these circumstances to favor an attachment, and nothing to prevent it, am I wrong, my dearest Jane, in indulging the hope of an event which will secure the happiness of so many? Like, all the families are going to be happy about this. Everybody's glad for it. What think you of this sentence, my dear Lizzie?" As Jane said as she finished it. "Is it not clear enough? Does it not expressly declare that Caroline neither expects nor wishes me to be her sister, that she is perfectly convinced of her brother's indifference, and that if she suspects the nature of my feelings for him, she means most kindly to put me on my guard? Can there be any other opinion on the subject? Yes, there can, for mine is totally different. Will you hear it? Most willingly." And Elizabeth, it's like, Jane, let me give you another way to look at this. You shall have it in a few words. Miss Bingley sees that her brother is in love with you and wants him to marry Miss Darcy. She follows him to town in the hope of keeping him there and tries to persuade you that he does not care about you. Jane shook her head. Indeed, Jane, you ought to believe me. No one has ever seen you two together can doubt this affection. Miss Bingley, I'm sure, cannot. She is not such a simpleton. Hey, Boomerang, Tudo bem? Could she have seen half as much love in Mr. Darcy for herself, she would have ordered her wedding clothes. But the case is this. We are not rich enough or grand enough for them, and she is more anxious to get Miss Darcy for her brother from the notion that when there has been one intermarriage, she may have less trouble in achieving a second, in which there is certainly some ingenuity, and I dare say it would succeed if Miss de Bourgh were out of the way. But my dearest Jane, you cannot seriously imagine that because Miss Bingley tells you her brother greatly admires Miss Darcy, he is the smallest degree less sensible of your merit than when he took leave of you on Tuesday, or that it will be in her power to persuade him that, instead of being in love with you, he's very much in love with her friend. Okay, so what's the agenda that Miss Bingley has? She wants Darcy for herself. So she's scheming that if she can get her brother away from Jane, who she considers Jane's family to be below her, that if she can get Bingley, Charles, away from the Bennets and Jane, she can get him connected and interested in Georgiana, Darcy. Then when they make the marriage, then that will strengthen her chance for Darcy to marry her, which is her agenda. That's Elizabeth's take. And Elizabeth really wants Jane. No, she knows Jane sincerely loves Bingley and she wants the best for them. What do you think? Who do you think is right? Do you think the story in the letter is the true story and Bingley's just moved on and it's all about marriage and arrangement, and so Bingley's just going to do what he's told to do? Who do you think is going to win? Because now it's about who's going to control him. If we thought alike of Miss Bingley, replied Jane, your representation of all this might make me quite easy. But I know, I would accept it, I'm comfortable with it. But I know the foundation is unjust. Caroline is incapable of willfully deceiving anyone, and all that I can hope in this case is that she is deceived herself. Do you think Caroline is so pure, or is Caroline a mean girl? What do you think? Do you think she's manipulating to get her own angle? And what evidence is there in the characters that we've seen so far to make you distrust Caroline? Why does Jane trust Caroline? Why does Elizabeth distrust Caroline? Those are all good things to think about when you're reading a book for comprehension and for classwork. Argentina, hola. Santiago, so good. You cried the beloved country. That was a tough read. It's not an easy one, and I didn't have a lot of background in South African history, so I had a lot to learn as I read that. I'm so glad you joined us. My son has been to Buenos Aires and loves Argentina. My best friend is from Buenos Aires, and I've not been. It's on my bucket list because I hear it is fabulous. So who do you think is right? Do you think Elizabeth is right, or do you think Jane is right? So that is right. You could not have started a more happy idea, since you will not take comfort in mine. Believe her to be deceived by all means. You have now done your duty by her and must fret no longer. Jane's just so nice. Mean girl. Ruby, that's where I tend to lead, but I don't want to mislead y'all because I know the story. So, but think about why. What have you seen about her so far that makes you think she's a mean girl? And those are some life lessons you can take in recognizing mean girls in real life. What have you seen Miss Bingley do so far that makes her seem like a mean girl? Look for the little things, little snubs, little comments, little gossipy, backbitey things. How can you talk so, said Jane, faintly smiling. You must know that though I should be exceedingly grieved at their disapprobation, I could not hesitate. I did not think you would, and that being the case, I cannot consider your situation with much compassion. But if he returns no more this winter, my choice will never be required. 1,000 things may arise in 6 months. Like, that's too long. He'll forget me. The idea of his returning no more, Elizabeth treated with the utmost contempt. It appeared to her merely the suggestion of Caroline's interested wishes, and she could not for a moment suppose that those wishes, however openly or artfully spoken, could influence a young man so totally independent of everyone. She represented to her sister as forcibly as possible what she felt on the subject, and soon the pleasure of seeing its happy effect. Jane's temper was not desponding, and she was gradually led to hope that the diffidence of affection sometimes overcame the hope that Bingley would return to Netherfield and answer every wish of her heart. So being in love, she can't help herself. She just believes that he'll return and they'll live happily ever after. The romantic. Anshul, well, you are welcome for reading. Tell me where you're coming from and like what part of the world and what age group are you and what book have you read? I love hearing about that. And I also like knowing how you found me. Did it get recommended? Did you Google search it? Did you YouTube search it? What search did you do? Have you subscribed? If you haven't, here's my plug, my shameless plug. Subscribe. If you want to engage more with like-minded people of literature, find us on Discord. We'll post the link. And then you can engage with us in chats in all kinds of ways. They agreed that Mrs. Bennet should only hear of the departure of the family without being alarmed on the score of the gentleman's conduct. But even now, it's interesting to me, he left and he didn't write to Jane. What does that say to us about Bingley? I mean, do we know everything is a question? So they're not going to tell Mom because she's already stressed enough about Mr. Collins and being rejected. And if she knows that, the prospect for Jane has diminished, she'll just be a mess. But even this partial communication gave her a great deal of concern, and she bewailed it as exceedingly unlucky that the lady should happen to go away, just as they were all getting so intimate together. After lamenting it, however, at some length, she had the consolation of thinking that Mr. Bingley would be soon down again, and soon dining at Longbourn. And the conclusion of all was a comfortable declaration that, though he had been invited only to a family dinner, she would take care to have 2 full courses. So we're at 27 minutes. Let's see how long this next chapter is. I'm going to keep reading 22 because it's not that long and I really want to get through the book and I have time today to read. So you guys can always pause it or fast forward through it or skip. But while we're here, let's just keep reading. Coming from East Coast, almost 16, The Great Gatsby. I'm always curious to know how East Coast readers find The Great Gatsby because, its setting is there. Audiobooks. Yay. Thanks, Anshul. That was when I used to teach, so that was filmed in my classroom, and now I'm not a classroom teacher anymore, but I keep reading when I can from home. I don't think it's as much fun as when I was in the classroom, but it's better than not at all. Oh, did you say East? Oh, East Coast, USA. Okay, Kelly, that made me double check. So how is the weather there, Kelly, by the way? Are you getting snow yet? All right, so chapter 22, and this is page 115, if you guys are in the same book as I am. The benefits. Sometimes you just see words and make them up when you read. The Bennets were engaged to dine with the Lucases, and again during the chief of the day was Miss Lucas so kind as to listen to Mr. Collins. So Mr. Collins is heartbroken, and who's there but simple cousin Miss Charlotte Lucas? Predictions? Any foreshadowing there? A skiff of snow? I don't know that word, Kelly. A skiff of snow. Is that exclusively for snow? Jacket weather now. Kelly, I mean it. Before I get to Argentina, I'm coming up to see you. I am in love with Nova Scotia. I want to get there. I don't know, whenever Corona ends and I have enough vacation time and frequent flyer miles, I'm coming. Elizabeth took an opportunity of thanking her, It keeps him in good humor, said she, and I'm obliged to you that I can express. More obliged. Like, thank you for keeping him off my back, Charlotte. Charlotte assured her friend of her satisfaction in being useful, and that it amply repaid her for the little sacrifice of her time. This was very amiable, but Charlotte's kindness extended farther than Elizabeth had any conception of. Its object was nothing less than to secure her from any return of Mr. Collins's addresses by engaging them towards herself. Such was Miss Lucas's scheme, and appearances were so favorable that when they parted at night, she would have felt almost sure of success if he had not been to leave Hertfordshire so very soon. But here she did injustice to the fire and independence of his character, for it led him to escape out of Longbourn House the next morning with admirable slyness and hasten to Lucas Lodge to throw himself at her feet. Ah, he needs a wife. Charlotte paid him attention. His ego, remember we talked about him being a little insecure. His ego was soothed, and so he wants to marry Charlotte. Good fit, not good fit. What do you guys think? Ruby, good observation. That we're talking about Miss Bingley here. She seems nice at first, but behind Elizabeth's back, she talked bad about her, make herself look better to Darcy. Very insightful, very good assessment. And let me tell you, young women, something. If you hang around women friends who are constantly bashing other girls in the group, I promise you, they're talking trash about you when you're not there. Those are mean girls. Those are people that do not make your world better. And I know in the world of high school, it's hard to navigate the societal structure, but I'm not saying don't be friends with those kind of girls, but don't reveal anything to them that you don't want to be hurt by. Because if they're talking about others to you, they're talking about you to others, right? It's unfortunately, middle school is the worst. It gets better by junior, senior year. Unfortunately, it's a female characteristic, and I think it comes from the lack of empowerment most women feel. And again, just like Mr. Collins, he's a little insecure. I think what's the old adage, hurting people hurt people. Insecurity makes us try and make ourselves look better by making other people look bad. And you've just got to learn. I'm not saying to become a recluse, just have to be careful who you trust, and don't tell all of your business to the person that is a Miss Bingley. Let's just call her Miss Bingley, because they're not trustworthy. So again, it's what I love about literature. You really see really great literature. You see human characteristics that you can identify with in your real life. And when you make those connections, you better understand the story, so that when the teacher asks those essay questions or those short answer questions on tests, you can better understand it because you can connect to it and relate to it. You can make real life connections to it. And that's what I love about literature. I'm thinking my glasses are not on my face, but they are. So scheme Hertfordshire. So he's gone to throw himself at her feet. He was anxious to avoid the notice of his cousins, from a conviction that if they saw him depart, they could not fail to conjecture his design, and he was not willing to have the attempt known till its success could be known likewise. He wants to go ask her, but he doesn't want to tell his cousins where he's going to ask Lucas Charlotte to marry him, because if he gets rejected again, that feels terrible. So he's going to sneak out and go ask her. Though feeling almost secure, and with reason, for Charlotte had been tolerably encouraging, he was comparatively confident since the adventure of unsure, diffident since the adventure of Wednesday. His reception, however, was of the most flattering kind. Miss Lucas perceived him from an upper window as he walked towards the house, and instantly set out to meet him accidentally in the lane. But little had she dared to hope that so much love and eloquence awaited her there. Let's go back to the purpose of marriage in the day. Does she love him, or does she love the idea of marriage and being secure and settled? And what's different between Charlotte? Why does Charlotte find him a good fit for her while Elizabeth does not? What does that have to do? Like, does that mean he's a good guy, a bad guy? Charlotte's a good guy, a bad guy? Those are the things to think about. In as short a time as Mr. Collins's long speeches would allow, everything was settled between them to the satisfaction of both, and as they entered the house, he earnestly entreated her to name the day that was to make him the happiest of men. And though such a solicitation must be waived for the present, the lady felt no inclination to trifle with his happiness. The stupidity with which he was favored by nature must guard his courtship from any charm that could make a woman wish for such continuance, and Miss Lucas, who accepted them solely from the pure and disinterested desire of an establishment, cared not how soon that establishment was gained. I will be honest with you, I have no idea what that passage just said. So let me give you a reading tip. That was really a lot of words. I don't know that it's that important. If it were, if I get into the book, into the story further on the next page and I'm still lost, I would go back and really dig in and take that apart. But that happens a lot when you guys read, and too often you skip. I don't get it. I'll just skip it. You've got to learn to go, was that important or not? So in this case, I don't think it's going to be important. So I'm going to keep reading. But if I stay lost, I know that was the part I got lost in. Let me go back there and take it apart. I hope that's a good tip that helps you. That's where I see a lot of kids really fall apart. Hey, Siddharth, I hope you go back and watch this all, because I made some talk about you and Discord and posting Discord and a lot of good tips on test prep. So, see, there's a lot of us that know each other. Venus, Sid, Caper, we all know each other from Discord. So we all, when we come on here, it's like, yay, we're a family. So it's fun. But I hope that's a good reading comprehension tip. If you get lost in something, don't get bogged down in it. Keep reading. If you stay lost, go back to that point, and you might even annotate and put question marks like, I don't know what the heck's going on. So you know that's where you got off the page. You know, you got off the path, and then you can come back to it. Sir William and Lady Lucas were speedily applied to for their consent. So they asked parents for permission to marry, and it was bestowed with the most joyful alacrity quickly. Mr. Collins' present circumstances made it a most eligible match for their daughter, to whom they could give little fortune, and his prospects of future wealth were exceedingly fair. Lady Lucas began directly to calculate with more interest than the matter had ever excited before how many years longer Mr. Bennet was likely to live. The sooner Mr. Bennet dies, the sooner her daughter will come into the inheritance. So they're very happy about this. So they have title, their lady and lord, but they don't necessarily have money. And that was a lot of the strategy of marriage back there. The marriage was for these alliances of wealth and nobility and status. All of that matters much less than love and companionship. And Sir William gave it as his decided opinion that whenever Mr. Collins should be in possession of the Longbourn estate, it would be highly expedient that both he and his wife should make their appearance at St. James. The whole family, in short, were properly overjoyed on the occasion. The younger girls formed hopes of coming out a year or two sooner than they might otherwise have done, and the boys were relieved from their apprehension of Charlotte's dying an old maid. So all the family is happy. Hey, Shami. I'm glad you said something. Oh, Omi. Hey, Yara. Hey, baby. Sorry, gotta have a grandmother moment. Tell me that she sees me and says hi back. Be good today. Read a book. She doesn't like to read. So now all the Lucas family feels secure because the boys don't have to worry about their unwed sister. The younger sisters feel like there's a good connection that will give them a better chance to find a marriage. This is just a win for everybody. Charlotte herself was tolerably composed. She had gained her point and had time to consider of it. Her reflections were in general satisfactory. All right, I love to make her very happy. Mr. Collins, to be sure, was neither sensible nor agreeable. His society was irksome, and his attachment to her must be imaginary, but still he would be her husband. Without thinking highly either of men or of matrimony, marriage had always been her object. It was the only honorable provision for L. Now, this you should annotate if you're reading this for school. Listen carefully to this. This is what I've been talking about, and this is the point Austen is making. It says marriage had always been her object. This has been her goal. It was the only honorable provision or option for a well-educated young woman of small fortune, if you weren't rich, and however uncertain of giving happiness, must be their pleasantest preservative from want. This is the only way to have a secure future. If you are a not wealthy woman of education, because if you aren't educated, you can work in as a merchant, as a middle class, servant. You can work, you can get work. But if you're well educated, that's seen as beneath you. So your only option was marriage. And if you weren't well connected, if you didn't have money, and if you weren't beautiful and accomplished, and Charlotte is none of those, the only thing she really has going for her is that she has a noble birth. She's not going to inherit anything, I don't think. I think the title all went to the sons. So the only thing she had was she was kind of nice. She kissed up to Colin. She doesn't necessarily like him, but this was her only way to a secure middle age. Teaching the private home. Thank you, Kelly. See, that's why I love Kelly. She always helps me remember things that I don't remember. That was an option, definitely an option. So, and if she wasn't that brilliant, I don't know that she's not that skilled, so she doesn't have a lot of ability to teach. This is really her best bet. And there's our Discord link for those of you that want to join us over there. I'll typically be on after I read. This preservative of want she had now obtained, and at the age of 27, oh, so she's old, without having ever been handsome, not beautiful. She felt all the good luck of it. She's so thankful that she has a husband. The least agreeable circumstance in the business was the surprise it must occasion to Elizabeth Bennet, whose friendship she valued beyond that of any other person. She's worried, is Elizabeth going to hate her for taking her beau? Elizabeth would wonder and probably would blame her, and though her resolution was not to be shaken, her feelings must be hurt by such disapprobation. She resolved to give her the information herself, and therefore charged Mr. Collins, when he returned to Longbourn to dinner, to drop no hint of what had passed before any of the family. She's worried that she'll lose her friend Elizabeth over this. What do you think? Do you think Elizabeth's going to care that Charlotte is marrying Mr. Collins? I don't think so. But so Charlotte gives Mr. Collins a condition. Don't talk about it when you go back home. Don't tell him we're engaged. Let me be the one to tell her. A promise of secrecy was, of course, very dutifully given, but it could not be kept without difficulty, for the curiosity excited by his long absence burst forth in such very direct questions on his return as required some ingenuity to evade, and he was at the same time exercising great self-denial, for he was longing to publish his prosperous love. As he needs to hey, you turned me down. I already got another woman to marry me. He needs to feed his ego. Hi, Elizabeth Emanuel. As he was to begin his journey too early on the morrow to see any of the family, the ceremony of leave-taking was performed when the ladies moved for the night, and Mrs. Bennet, with great politeness and cordiality, said how happy she should be to see him at Longbourn again, whenever his other engagements might allow him to visit them. My dear madam, he replied, this invitation is particularly gratifying, because it is what I've been hoping to receive, and you may be certain that I shall avail myself of it as soon as possible. They were all astonished, and Mr. Bennet, who could by no means wish for so speedy a return, immediately said, but there is no danger of Lady Catherine's disapprobation here, my good sir. You had better neglect your relations than run the risk of offending your patroness. Don't worry about us. Make sure you take care of Lady Catherine de Bourgh. My dear sir, said Mr. Collins, I am particularly obliged to you for this friendly caution, and you may depend upon my not taking so material a step without her lady's countenance, without her approval. You cannot be too much on your guard. Risk anything rather than her displeasure. And as you find it likely to be raised by your coming to us again, which I should think exceedingly probable, stay quietly at home and be satisfied that we shall take no offense. He's very passive aggressively saying, don't hurry back. Believe me, my dear sir, my gratitude is warmly excited by such affectionate attention, and depend upon it, you will speedily receive from me a letter of thanks for this, as well as for every other mark of your regard during my stay at Hertfordshire. As for my fair cousins, though my absence may not be long enough to render it necessary, I shall now take the liberty of wishing them health and happiness, not excepting my cousin Elizabeth. Including Elizabeth. Like, I have nothing against her. With proper civilities, the ladies then withdrew. Everybody went to bed. All of them equally surprised to find that he meditated a quick return. They're surprised. Why is he going to come back? Why is he going to come back? Because he's going to marry Charlotte, and they don't know that. But he wants them to know, I'll be back. Arnold Schwarzenegger, I'll be back. With proper civilities, the ladies then withdrew. Oh, I already read that. Mrs. Bennet wished to understand by it that he thought of paying his addresses to one of her younger girls, and Mary might have been prevailed on to accept him. Oh, so Miss Bennet's thinking, I wants to come back and try for one of the other daughters. But we know that's not right. She rated his abilities much higher than any of the others. There was a solidity to his reflections which often struck her, and though by no means so clever as herself, she thought that if encouraged to read and improve himself by such an example as hers, he might become a very agreeable companion. But on the following morning, every hope of this kind was done away. Miss Lucas called soon after breakfast, and in a private conference with Elizabeth, related the event of the day before. The possibility of Mr. Collins fancying himself in love with her friend had once occurred to Elizabeth within the last day or two, but that Charlotte could encourage him seemed almost as far from possibility as that she could encourage him herself, and her astonishment was consequently so great as to overcome at first the bounds of decorum, and she could not help crying out, "Engaged to Mr. Collins? My dear Charlotte, impossible!" The steady countenance with which Miss Lucas had commanded in telling her story gave way to a momentary confusion here on receiving so direct a reproach, though as it was no more than she expected, she soon regained her composure and calmly replied, "Why should you be surprised, dear Eliza? Do you think it incredible that Mr. Collins should be able to procure any woman's good opinion because he was not so happy as to succeed with you? Hi, Mads Williams. Are they going to make it through his friendship, or is this going to break them?" Feelings, this is awkward, but Elizabeth had now recollected herself, and making a strong effort for it, was able to assure her with tolerable firmness that the prospect of their relationship was highly grateful to her, and that she wished them all imaginable happiness. "I see what you are feeling," replied Charlotte. "You must be surprised, very much surprised, so lately as Mr. Collins was wishing to marry you. But when you have had time to think it all over, I hope you will be satisfied with what I have done. I'm not romantic, you know. I never was. I ask only a comfortable home, and considering Mr. Collins' character, connections, and situation in life, I'm convinced that my chance of happiness with him is as fair as most people can boast on entering the marriage state. I don't think marriage is going to be a big win for anybody, but I'll have a decent home. I'll have a decent life. I don't think he'll abuse me. So this is a good choice for me." Ladies, is this what we're hoping for marriage? Young men, is that what you're hoping girls are looking for from you? Interesting. How has it changed? Do we marry? What's our reason for marriage? What is love and what is marriage? What are those relationships about? That's what Austen is really evaluating. Just a little bit more. Elizabeth quietly answered, "Undoubtedly." And after an awkward pause, they returned to the rest of the family. Charlotte did not stay much longer, and Elizabeth was left to reflect on what she had heard. It was a long time before she became at all reconciled to the idea of so unsuitable a match. The strangeness of Mr. Collins making 2 offers of marriage within 3 days reminds me of Romeo and Juliet, when Romeo was so in love with Rosalind at the beginning, and then he meets Juliet, and immediately he's in love with her, and she's the only woman. Look at those parallels, and if you're in school, that's the kind of thing a teacher would love for you to shout out if you have some kind of discussion. That's a great parallel. Venus, have a great day. Are you working today or you just had school today? It was a long time before she became at all reconciled to the idea of so unsuitable a match. The strangeness, oh, there we are. She had always felt that Charlotte's opinion of matrimony was not exactly like her own, but she could not have supposed it possible that when called into action, she would have sacrificed every better feeling to worldly advantage. Charlotte, the wife of Mr. Collins, was a most humiliating picture, and to the pang of a friend disgracing herself and sunk in her esteem was added the distressing conviction that it was impossible for that friend to be tolerably happy in the lot she had chosen. Wow. Interesting, interesting. I love your feedback. Those of you that are reading in the future and you can't join this chat, or if you're not on Discord, I'd really like to hear your thoughts on marriage as it's portrayed by Austen and today. What would you do if that was your friend? Would you support her even though you think she's making a mistake? Or would you just try and encourage her because that's the choice she made? Be safe running your errands, Venus, and we'll see you next time. Guys, thank you. I know that was 50 minutes, but we got 2 chapters in. Well, that looked like 4, 2 chapters in. I hope you have a great Friday. I should be able to read this weekend. I don't have too much going on, but the weather's beautiful. I do have household projects I need to work on. I want to get up to the woods where I don't always have good signal and I can't always read up there. But it was great sharing time. There were so many of you on. I got to see my little granddaughter. Well, I didn't see her, but she got to see me. I hope you guys do great this weekend. If you haven't subscribed, let's keep growing. I think we're at 10,200 maybe. So I don't know what our goal is to get to next, but we're building Discord. We're building a community. My take on this crazy presidential election is that our world is angry and frustrated and scared and hurt. I mean, we're so divided, and division to me can only be repaired through good things, kindness, finding things we have in common, not what we're different about. So if we have this love of literature and love of books and love of reading, let's build on that and let's make a community of that and welcome everybody that wants to share that and not build on what our differences are. If you've read with me very long, I think you pick up on that theme with me. You know, we can be angry, and I understand being angry. We can be needing to do something with that anger, but I'm choosing to channel my feelings of confusion and loss and hurt by people that are putting hateful things on social media. I'm choosing to be thankful for my YouTube channel and for all these great young people who are interested in reading and learning and sharing and coming to this community of like-minded people and belonging. So find something positive today. Find something positive this weekend. Keep reading, and I will read to you next time. See ya. I know I'm corny.